All right. I think we are live out there on social media. Welcome, everybody. Tom Hazard here, along with Tracy Hazard. And this is our client coaching call. We're going to record an episode of Feed Your Brand. And we've got really a topic today that really is key to who we are at Podetize and something Tracy and I are really fundamentally proponents of, and it's always a helpful thing. And it's always good to brush up on this if we're already aware, and if you're not, it's going to open your eyes.
Well, let's get started so that I can explain where this topic came from today.
All right. We're already recording. Yeah, of course.
Of course we are. We're
Of course we
always
are.
recording.
Yeah.
It's like an automatic thing for a podcaster.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, welcome to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tom Hazard, along with my co-host Tracy Hazard. And today we are going to talk about unconventional long tail keyword research for podcasters.
Okay, wait, stop. Don't turn it off. Don't get freaked out because we said keyword research. We
You
said,
think that people are going to run for the hills
yeah,
now
they're
because
like,
we said that?
episode off. like, okay, next. But please don't. This totally has stuff to do with your podcast. It's actually what is going to make it work for you. Like, I don't know how many times I have to explain to podcasters that you can't just talk about whatever you want within some framework, right? If you've got the base framework, you can talk about whatever you want. But when you have the framework in place, your show is going to do so much better than everyone else's that you'll be one of those that stick it out well past 100 plus episodes. Some of our listeners right now and some of our coaching clients are well past 800 episodes. So this will work for you. Now, the thing that I want to say is that it freaks people out because it seems really techy and geeky. And for some, it seems old school.
It's incredibly important. And I can't tell you how many times, I mean, really, it happens a lot where I'll do a power podcast appraisal. I'm reviewing their show and I look at the titles and I'm like, oh no. Because you've got either titles that are all only guest names, which isn't going to do much for you, or, 2 3 word titles that begin with the date the episode published. Nobody
The
cares
numbers.
about that.
My favorite
Yeah.
are the numbers.
Oh, there's just so many errors that people make, and they just are unaware how critical this is. So
No, but that's not even it. This is what I remember I told, if you've been listening at the beginning of this year, we are nothing but tough love this year.
it's true.
So you are effing up your podcast. If you put your numbers at the beginning, I'm done with you people who think that my clients, my people, they care about the numbers. No, the only person that cares about the number is you. And you are messing up your show success because of it. Get out of your own way. Do what the algorithm and the apps and the listeners want you to do, or stop podcasting. I'm done with this waste of my time and your time. Stop wasting your time if you're not going to take this seriously. Get rid of those numbers. If you need them for some reason, put them at the end. That's it. Put them on the graphic. Right? Like nobody cares what it says on the graphic.
No, that's true. And the graphic doesn't impact SEO except for alt tags on the back, but you're certainly not going to put all that stuff on it. So, yeah, I actually have some customers that they feel it's important for people to know their season number and their episode number and to refer to it. And one of those places, putting it is in the episode graphic, like in the upper right corner.
Which
Yeah,
is great
that
because
works.
then it's like right there in the little corner and it doesn't mess with your title with wasting any space that is so valuable to your show and to how you get listeners, right? So that's what we're really talking about today here is this sort of keyword. Now call it unconventional because I think Google keyword research is mind numbing. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
only people that I've ever seen do it really well are absolute tech geeks who could never talk about the topic, but they'll generate a list on the topic. So then sometimes they give me and we've had it. We used to have a service that would give us this keyword silo, they called it, right? And it's a list of keywords, and some of them were longer tail than others. And when we say long tail and short, long tail and focus keyword is usually like 2 to 4 words or something maximum, and usually a couple of words are short within that. But 5 words could be a long tail keyword research, and what you're doing is you're impacting it by making it more impactful by putting keywords and niche focus in it at the same time. That's the way I would term it. So when I say we're going to do focus keyword research, that might be a great focus keyword. It might be a great keyword for just about anyone. But when I add podcast topic focus keyword research, now I've got a long tail, right? So now I'm covering a broader topic where someone who types in a real question, those words are likely to show up. And those are the kind of people we want to support, because someone who has a question doesn't want a quick answer. They're asking a longer question. They're looking for a longer answer. That's where your podcast is ideal. So I'm a big fan of long tail, but sometimes we have to cover the short because we have to cover our main topic area. So this is a really good example. Tom and I are taking this focus keyword of talking about focus keywords, right? Like, this is very meta, right? Focus keywords on focus keywords, and we're podcasting about it, right? And what we're doing is we're actually going to break it up into 4 sessions. And we have one of our podcasters to thank for that, because she was referencing to us in our coaching call last week that the layered approach is a much better way to learn. So we want to apply that here. So this is our fundamentals, basically, thinking about this. So we're giving you some of the fundamentals, but we're giving you the fundamentals with our unconventional twist, because I think that techie way of researching is not necessarily listener friendly, and it's not necessarily in the best interest of my business to be talking about stuff. So Tom, tell the story about how we used to do this back when we had our 3D Start Point and 3D printing podcast, WTFFF.
Okay, but then I'm dying to hear what you're going to say about how to do it, because I think I know what you're going to say,
You
but I'm
think you
not.
know.
I think I know, but we'll find out. All right. And I'll reveal it later. I'll tell the truth after you do it, if that was what I thought or not. Okay. So yeah, 3D Start Point. It was a tech related podcast, although we were, pardon the pun, making it relatable. We were trying to bring the tech to the masses, to the newbies, and not make it such a, techie daunting thing to get into 3D printing. We're trying to help people get practical with it. But there's a huge range of terms and things that people were searching on, right? So, if it was an interview episode, there'd be a lot of information about a guest. We would do research on them, produce a sheet on them that we each had, actually a paper document with info about the guests and a lot of stuff that was helpful. We also would put keyword phrases onto that document. Or if it's a solo cast where Tracy and I were talking on something, we would have each a pad or at least a post-it with some notes, and we would decide, what are the different terms we want to cover to expand the number of, phrases that this post, when we created a blog from the podcast, would rank on. And so we would list it. We would have, yes, sometimes get a keyword silo from an outside marketing company we were working with and saying, hey, these are high value keywords. You should probably rank on those. Or we just decided ourselves, what do we want to expand? What are people asking us? We get questions, from them. So we'd have to decide, here's the main topic, and here is 3 or 5 related phrases that will, expand that from, a single phrase to combinations of phrases. And we'd have them on a post-it. And then Tracy and I would organically, naturally, not in a contrived way, say each of those words within what we're talking about, whether we're talking to each other or having a conversation with a guest. And I would sort of check off how many times I said each one. And after I hit it 3 or 4 times, I'd probably not need to say it again unless it made sense in what we were talking about. It might come up again, but we would call it playing word games, really. And that's how we would inject our episodes with all these different phrases.
Exactly. But the issues with doing that is that it can feel very contrived. And, so if you don't look at it as a challenge and fun and it's not interesting to you, then this is not the way to do it. And this is why I'm talking about sort of like unconventional ways to work these in. So the way that I decided to try it this year for you and am actually doing it this way right now, which is that we are starting with our big focus keyword, which in this case is focus keyword research, right? Like now I've inserted in our titles and other things for podcasters, right? Unconventional focus keyword research for podcasters. That's the official YouTube title. So when you think about it that way, I've got the phrase that I want to cover in there, but I'm also giving the title the opportunity to understand what my take on it is and what my audience is so that you're in the right place. So I'm working on both being sensitive to what's necessary to rank and what's necessary for my audience to feel involved, like to feel important that this is really for them and not me just covering SEO, right? Covering search engine optimization, because those podcasts that do it, you get bored with them really quickly. Let me tell you, if they hit all those keywords, like you can tell because they're methodical about it and it gets boring. So we don't want to be boring. We want to be anything but boring here on Future Brand. So we're approaching it from different ways. But that means that there are other phrases around that. Like we talked about few keyword fundamentals. That's another keyword phrase that I wanted to work in here. That happens to be the secondary focus of today because we're going to talk about the definitions and defining. And a month from now, we're going to cover some other things that are related that we're talking about right now. And so we're working in some of those words because we want them mentioned here. But then when we deep dive into them and we make them the focus next time, we now have cross pollination power between episodes within our own show. And that starts to get Google and Spotify and YouTube and Apple to see that we're a power partner. We're a ranking machine for them in making sure that if someone's interested in a topic and the areas surrounding that, we're a very good source for that. And so that's why we want to do it. Now, I like to space it out. Other con- blogging wisdom is to cram it all in and do it all at once. But in podcasting, I think you all can absorb it. And those of you who really want to learn, and it's not just an algorithm game, right? You don't care about just getting the eyes on the ads. So if you're not playing the ad game in podcasting or on your blog, and you're really doing it to make sure that your audience benefits and then they come and buy stuff from you, right? Then I want to make sure that I'm constantly serving my audience. So I feel like a more spaced approach, giving them breathing room and an opportunity to adapt and bring in some of the advice we give you each week is very important.
I would agree with that. We don't want to be too techy about it, and it kind of like you're hacking something, because this truly isn't about hacking it. And in fact, there's so much integrity coming from podcast content if you do it right. Obviously, if you really are passionate about what you're talking about, what you're sharing with your audience, this is just an approach to make sure you're covering the range of things that are going to be, the interests or the needs of your listener, and it's going to help them find you. You're helping yourself be found by not gaming it, just like you said, Tracy, taking this layered approach to what is my audience needs, what are they searching on, and what are people searching on in Google all the time, and they're going to naturally find you better because of this.
Right. And this is all about discoverability, visibility, right? Like that's what we're here about. We want to get you seen, heard, found, and rewarded, right? And if you don't understand enough about the algorithm game to take advantage of it, then you're at a disadvantage to those of us that know what we're doing and we do it. And that's why our podcasts are going gangbusters and yours are not. Is busting, right? So we want to make sure that we're covering both in a way that is audience focused. And that's really what today's about a little bit. So we were talking about a little fundamentals between short and long tail keywords, right? What the differences are there. And that's why I think podcasters should have a heavier focus on long tail, because we need to make this relevant to our audience. We need to put the spin and the take on it that makes it important to, for us, important to podcasters. For you, it might be speakers, authors, whatever that is your focus audience. Make sure you're putting that twist on it. So you must understand your audience. That's clearly some things that you need to understand at the beginning. And before, see, this is the thing is most of these companies that will pull a keyword silo for you, will pull a list of keywords, will do the research for you. You can go get them on Fiverr. When you go to do that, the problem is they don't know who your listeners are if you do not give them very detailed information. In fact, if you use ChatGPT, if you use Google Gemini, which is the one that I use all the time because I think it's more relevant to getting good SEO that already takes into consideration the Google keyword research tool without me having to ask it to. It's already doing that. It has full access to it. So it's more relevant if I tell it who my audience is. So too often we say, we have a podcast for podcasters. What should we talk about? Well, it will say what microphone to use, how to start a podcast, how to syndicate your show, how to get your show listed on Apple. It'll tell you stuff. Well, we don't need to tell you how to get your show listed on Apple because you just come to Poditize and we'll do it for you, right? Like, so there's a whole bunch of irrelevant things to what we have to offer and the viewpoint that we bring to the world, but also might be completely irrelevant because what if our audience isn't people? Our audience is people who've already started a podcast. So you already have one. You don't need to know how to syndicate. It would be a waste of our time to do those things. So if we don't give it the audience focus, and I like to take it not demographic wise, where are they in the timeline of whatever it is you're trying to help them do? Are they at the beginning? Are they at the middle? Are they at the end? Are they in different places? And maybe I need to have a little bit for each. So actually what I do is I say, okay, if I'm going to talk about focus keywords, how do I talk about it for somebody who's starting a show, who's trying to grow that show, and for someone who's probably done thousands of episodes? Like, how do I cover this topic for them? And that gets me another set of keywords and another set of keywords, which then I maybe don't want to do a whole episode on, but like Tom was talking about before, we add them as additional content pieces. We add them as additional things we mention and discuss.
So, Tracy, I've had a couple experiences very recently that are very relevant to this. And one thing I think would help for our listeners to understand another good reason why you really want to have long tail keyword titles and not just short titles. And, people often think, and especially we get a lot of podcasters in, money management and finance and some of these things, right? And if you were to ask any one of those podcast hosts, what phrases do you want to be found for? It's like money mastery, financial freedom, or certain things that any new person creating a show and creating a website is probably never going to rank on easily because there's so many huge companies. You're competing with Wall Street hedge funds and money management companies that you see commercials on television
That
for
spend
all
$1
the
million
time.
a day on advertising, right?
Right. And you're just not going to compete if you're doing the one or two words. What do you want to rank on? Money? Well, you're not going to rank on that. Right? Things like you got to think about the needs of your audience, the needs of your listener. And it's much easier for the independent little guy, small, medium sized business, even just independent solopreneur to rank very high on the first page of Google search for some need that your customer might be searching on. How do I become financially independent? So, and something like that, a question or a phrase or something that's layers deep.
Well,
It's
look,
much easier to rank on those
I mean,
things.
this is old school blogging and for those of us who came out of that, that's why we have an advantage over other podcasters, because we came from the blogging world, so we have the fundamental understanding of keyword research. We have the fundamental understanding of how structuring our topics and our titles matters. Where podcasting and radio came out of a world that had to appeal to the TV guide. And the TV Guide had very limited space and liked nice short titles because they didn't want to print that much stuff. And when you go in Netflix and all the other stuff, that's it. They have short title spaces. But we don't have that here in our podcast player app. So why should we be using something that works for someone with a Hollywood budget to promote their stuff? That's how they have to do it because there was no space to get anything relevant in. Why aren't we using the space we have to our advantage? Because we don't have the millions of dollars in advertising to spend. That's the difference right there. So WebMD, really great example, old school example, right? I mean, look, there was, huge medical databases and libraries and hospitals that
Oh my
had
gosh.
ranked on
Tracy, you
everything.
remember the huge book you used to have? It was like 4 inches thick on its spine. That was about medical, you know, symptoms and diagnoses and things
Right.
like that, right? Oh my God. And
Right.
this
We
is
just were
going
at
back like 30 years.
my dad has a gigantic library and we gave him a barcode scanner for Christmas and he scanned 435 books in his office alone, right? Like
Oh
it's
yeah, he's
crazy
making
number.
his own, index of all the books he has.
It's awesome. It's
It's a
it's
great thing for a retired person to be working on.
he's frustrated with the computing, but he's having fun doing it. I could tell, or he wouldn't keep doing it. But on his shelf, he had a book that looked brand new that was all about the catalog of all the drugs and the side effects and all the stuff like a doctor might have in their office. And I was like, "How old is this thing, Dad?" And I open it up, and it's from 1992, the year we got married. Oh no, it was from 1988, the year we graduated, right? That's what it was.
That's the
It
year we
was
met.
1980, yeah,
That's the year we
1988.
met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 1988. And so like I was like, this is not, and I would flip through, and sure enough, there are a lot of drugs we still take today, but I'm sure their side effects are updated, right? But going through one of these books is really difficult, and who had one? And so these libraries of them went online, digitized in the beginning, but WebMD took a different take. They said people don't go, I need this drug, and they look it up until their doctor suggests it to them. They say, I have this symptom. Why do I feel like this? Or I have this characteristics of symptoms. So it took and combined it from that direction and said, I feel headachy and achy and muscle aches and like I have all of these things. What could I possibly have? And people were looking that up. And WebMD started outranking medical organizations across the country, across the world. And that's exactly what can happen for you. You can outrank Charles Schwab. You can outrank the big banks. You can outrank this because they're not talking about the things in a way that the users, that the listeners, that the clients want. They're talking about the main topic because their stock is funded by ranking on money, not ranking on how to make money in a side business. Right? It's the way you talk about those things and the long tail combination of them, audience focused, understanding the stage that your audience is at and who they really are, like how they identify themselves. We know ours identify themselves as podcasters, whether they started a show or not. That's how we identify everything we do. We say for podcasters, because if you want to be a podcaster, you better start thinking of yourself like one.
And in fact, the definition of podcaster keeps expanding. I met with someone yesterday who I was referred to me. I was told they have a podcast. Okay. And when I went down and did the research, it's like,
No, they
well,
have
they
a
don't
YouTube
actually
channel.
have a podcast. They have a YouTube playlist, a YouTube channel, and a YouTube video series right now that could be a podcast, should be a podcast. There's a lot more they can do with it, but they really don't have a podcast yet, but they call it a podcast.
And they think of themselves as podcasters. So
Yes.
that's why it works for us. That's why it's almost, if you see our titles, it's in like 90% of them, right? Because we're trying to make sure that we're identifying with something that our target audience is identifying with. So really start thinking about that. And that's why when we jump on, we say, hey, podcasters, right? Like we know we're talking to you. It makes it easy for us to make that connection because we are really talking to you. and talking with you about these subjects. So that's the key approach that we take that makes the pulling of the list more important. And we're going to talk about tools and some other things in a future episode because it's really complex. In fact, I don't even know if we're going to talk about it at all. We might just link you to some videos on how to do some of this stuff because there's a lot of people out there who know to use Google keyword research that way better than I do. I may actually though do a video on my AI usage for you though.
Okay, so
Tom's like
that
pointing at
is
me.
what I was expecting you to be saying is that, creating keyword silos for WTFFF 3D printing podcast, 10 years ago, which is pretty scary, but it was. Um, is was an entirely different endeavor of research back then. Now, in a hot topic area where there's lots of things in the media, ideas can come to you. And if you have good knowledge of your subject area, that I just inherently believe all of you podcasters have a story to tell, have something to say, have expertise and experience to share with your audience. So you've got a lot of deep knowledge. It's just how to organize it and talk about it. But in this day and age, Tracy, using Gemini, chat AI or chat GPT, whatever you have that you can use, is an amazingly wonderful tool to generate all kinds of good topics and lists and phrases that you may want to include in your episodes, creating titles for things. And we're using it all the time, and you should too, quite honestly. I mean, you do need to, we have been learning, you do need to do your due diligence and verify that the AI is correct. If you're asking it a factual question, I actually have found recently it's been incorrect, and I've been teaching it how it was incorrect. You want to respond to it and correct it when it's wrong, which I had to learn.
But sometimes it comes up with surprising things when you and so you have to give yourself some time to do the research. Like I this is a little bit why we're a little behind getting our January started. It's because I was busy filing a grant that we're going to tell you about sometime in the near future, but I was filing a grant over the course of the holidays. And normally I would pre-do all of this research ahead of time. And I don't want to shortchange it by just giving you subjects. So I don't want to shortchange the research that we do, but I'll do an entire year's worth of research. Some of it I won't love when we get to it, and we'll throw it out and we'll replace it with something that seems really relevant in the moment. And we'll make as Tom calls it, an audible, which is a football term. And so
Call an audible
we'll
is the
call an
phrase. We'll
audible. Okay, of
call an
course I said
audible.
it wrong.
Yeah.
He'll call an audible, which has nothing to do with podcasting. It is a sports term. And so he'll call an audible and we'll make a substitution. Those are perfectly fine. I don't treat our 52-week plan as like set in stone or anything, but it does have a movement to it of layered learning, right? Because that's something that we are very proud of. It's something that we work really hard on. And so I want to keep that up for you across the year. But if we have to interrupt it with something really important, we will, because that is more critical to the path of everyone being successful. So we do that. But this year I didn't get it out fast enough. And so I'm still working on the pieces of it. And honestly, I have to say, because I would have been, AI is not faster at this for me, but I think it's being more effective by what I'm doing. So for me to generate that list of 52 last year probably took me 2 days. I'm probably now on my 10th day of working on it. And that's because I'm going methodically through topic groupings and planning out a minimum of 4 topics in an area that I want, a large focus. So I did the big focus keyword. I narrowed it down to 12. And then from there, I narrowed it down to 4. And then I expanded on those 4.
You mean
And then
four
big
related?
topics. Yeah.
Yeah, that so you're really creating a almost like a tree of data,
Yep.
and then having several different episodes that will be different but probably related in some way to a larger overarching topic, right?
Right, exactly. So it's a, so if I were just to rely on AI when I went into it and I first said, okay, give me what topics we should do. I mean, I had a list of 52 of them and some of them were good, but when I really went through them, they were either too repetitive to stuff we'd done in the past or too broad that to make a single episode on. It's like SEO. Like it would come up with search engine optimization for podcasters. I'm like, what part of that do you want to talk about? If I talk about it here in one single episode, I'm barely going to prick the surface of anything. And that's not what we want to give you here. We want to give you something really actionable, something really powerful that you can do something with. So it doesn't fit our model of what we're doing with our show. So I would use that. And then out of that 52 list, I literally only took 12 of them that I thought, okay, these are the general areas we want to focus on. We always want to do something that's focused on social media. We obviously want to do something that's focused on video and YouTube. We want to do something that's focused on SEO, titling, blogging, that kind of area, because we believe that's a critical factor to success. And so we took those pieces and I structured them in, and then I created another request for 52 topics. And so in that case, actually, I think the second time around, I only asked for 12 topics. That's what I did. I only asked for 12 topics. And when I got to the 12, I started screening them down and I would narrow down to 4 that I felt were new versions of what we hadn't talked about before. And almost all of them had long tail keywords in them. And if I didn't feel like they were like all focused on starters, like, people who had just started their show or new to a show, then I went in and went back to it and said, okay, give me 4 more, but focus on someone who's really an advanced user, and I always have a picture of who you are because Scott Carson, you're sitting here listening, right? The Note Closer Show, 1,000 episodes, right? Where it's impressive. So I always am thinking, how am I going to impress Scott on my show? How am I going to keep him engaged, right?
I
And
love that Scott keeps coming back to experience these live episodes that we do when he doesn't always know what we're going to talk about. Today he didn't because we didn't really put the
we didn't
topic
lay
out
it out.
much ahead of time, right? But he still sticks with it and actually contributes very well because guess what? He's really interested and
Yeah.
he's really interested and wants to keep improving what he's doing, even though he's been doing it, is more
And
experienced
that
than most.
challenges us, right? It
Yeah.
challenges us. And so that's the point is I want to have something that challenges people. So as I started to break it apart, I got into this rhythm of it, but it requires layer after layer of asking the AI things because you have to ask it one way for starters and another way for pros, right? Like, so I would have to do it once and then do it again and then put them together and then make them all flow together. And then I would go back in and I would say, okay, now let's get the titles, the descriptions, for those of you on our coaching call privately in our Zoom room, for those of you who show up, I am typing in all the research. Oops, it didn't copy and paste. I will try it again. I'm going to give you all of so that you can see what it looks like, what the
What
pieces
what the
of that.
generative chat was?
Well, no, what it turned into for this episode because we
Ah.
didn't air it with all of that information in it. So I'm going to give it to you. If the copy and paste is not working in the system, I'll get
You
it
know,
in for you before the end of
I had an issue copy and
yeah,
pasting something from within the
like Google
Google
Doc.
Workspace
Yeah,
environment.
it's
You
not
know
working.
why what I discovered is I was trying to paste something into a doc that I didn't have edit access to, and that was
Okay,
a
well, this one's
rookie
my
error.
doc, so
I know.
it
So you
should
probably
be
do.
totally capable of pasting. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that this layered approach to everything is not is not the most conventional way to go about using AI. Like AI is a shortcut. That's what everybody tells you. And what I'm telling you,
That is a
it
naive approach, I think, to
it's a
AI.
shortcut to mediocrity.
Yeah.
It's a shortcut to doing what everybody else is doing, and you are not going to be seen, heard, and found that way. So if you want to use it and use it to do some things that surprise you, that brings you more. So this is what it is. So so we're going to talk in a little bit of layers here about what the layers that are coming for you are. So in this first layer, we're talking all about this keyword research and knowing your audience and long and short tails. And we're going to talk just in a moment before we go about some things that you might want to build up as you're doing the research, other places to look besides just the keyword tools. So that's coming in just a moment. But the second episode that we're going to do in the second quarter of this year is about optimization. So now, once you've got titles and you've got some of these things, how do you optimize them? How do you get them so that you rank better? That's what we're going to talk about in the next set. This way, you're getting your fundamentals, you're getting a chance for a couple of months to get it in place and start using it and start doing it. And then I'm going to teach you how to make it even better, right? And that'll be the next step. And then after that, we're going to talk about hyper niche focus, how you really make it focused for your audience. And that's another layer of that. And then the final one, and this one just fascinated me when I said, okay, these are good, but Scott Carson's not going to be like totally excited about it. This isn't going to be something new to him. I want something that makes him go, whoa, right? So I wanted something that honestly made me go, whoa, this is really cool. And did I not, whoa, audibly, Tom, when this came up? You were in
You
the room while
did.
I was
Yeah,
doing it.
you absolutely
I
did.
had never heard this term before, but it is something that we do. Semantic keyword optimization, going beyond exact keyword matches and incorporating semantically related terms and synonyms to get to a wider range of search intent.
And
And that's what we did on those cards,
if
right?
you really understand the outcome that all of you podcasters want, which is to be found, to increase your reach, you think about this, what Tracy just said, that statement right there is absolute gold. Because again, you want to be found, you sort of need to play where the opportunities are and not just try to rank on the same thing that other people rank on. There's a lot of things surrounding what they rank on that you can rank on, then and eventually you can outrank even the big guys, even the WebMDs of the world. You really can, because Google doesn't discriminate. They're not giving advantages to the big guys because they're big. They care about who's most current, who's most relevant, who's talking about it more often, more consistently, who's got more episodes in the area, not just what's, the one. So that is absolute gold right there, Tracy.
Yeah, I was really excited
It,
about it. I mean,
it,
we
it,
were
it,
doing it. I just didn't know that's
oh,
what it was called. And now that I know that it's what it's called, this is a focus keyword we should be using. So we will be
darn
using it
right.
before the end of the year. You will get that in the flow of what we're talking about here. And you heard our second technique of something we do, which is called open looping, which I open looped you to the last thing that we're going to talk about, which is when you've decided on this niche audience that you have, you know who they are, you know where they are in stages, the fastest way to understand how to rank and what to rank is by going out and finding competitive websites and competitive podcasts and competitive YouTube channels. So if I find out who else is serving that audience, and you probably should know because they're getting speaking engagements that you're not doing, so you're always going up against them. You're seeing them mentioned in the press and you're like, why am I not getting that? Or their videos being served up to you on YouTube. So those things are happening. You should know who they are. And once you find out and figure out who they are, you can take their website, you can take examples of their podcasts, you can take their RSS feed, and you can drop that into ChatGPT or Google Gemini and tell it to help you find focus keywords so you can outrank that person. Now, that's a great jumpstart for those of you starting your show who don't yet have the basis, because what it won't do really well is tell you what next to do. But what it will tell you to do is what you need to compete against them, right? Like what they have that you don't have. And you can ask it that way. So find episodes that they have that I don't have. find things that I have that they don't have so I can expand on them, or find things that none of us have that is trending out there that I could really communicate on and differentiate myself with. So there are ways to approach how you prompt it depending on the stage of where you are. But if you're trying to get your groundwork done, like you making sure you get your base episodes, Tom and I are way beyond our base episodes. Like, so, and we outrank all of our competitors on every topic. In fact, it says, you don't talk about this, and it'll be like the most basic dumb thing, like how to syndicate on Apple. I'm like, yep, and we never will. Like, so it was an easy, like, cross off the list of the stuff we were missing, right? So you'll find that when you get a couple hundred episodes in, and we're like 4 or something. So when you're through with those things, that really gives you a basis of understanding of where you rank against them. But what I always like to do is make sure that I've listened to their show, watched their videos, or done those things, and understand what they provide that I don't provide, and what I provide that's really special and unique. And that's what we did when we did our 3D print podcast. We were so great at speaking to people who were afraid to go, like, I don't know what that means. Like, the people who wanted things to be a little more defined, a little more explained to them, and didn't want to have this haughty attitude that I know everything and I'm a tech god, and I got this covered, and of course you little people, you don't know what 3D printing is, too bad for you. We didn't do that. We wanted to be the bridge to bring all those people along and make sure that they could find the definitions, they could find the tactics, they could find success, and not give up on 3D printing. That was our place. And people loved us and recommended us because of it. So find your spot, find your niche, and stay true to that no matter what the AI, no matter what the keyword research tells you. Stay true to where you speak, who's authentically you in the world. And I think you're going to find that focused keyword research, though, amps up what you already do really well to a place at which you finally get the credibility you deserve online.
Okay, Tracy, let's drop the mic there. And let's end on a high note. That was awesome. Thank you very much for your insights and what you're sharing on how we're doing this keyword research today. And you know what, everyone, if you missed anything, you want to get a link to anything that we've talked about, it's going to be in the blog post at podcastersunited.org. So go check that out. And remember, if you're listening to this in a podcast, a few weeks later, you can get it live early if you come join us Wednesdays at noon Pacific. All right. Until next time, this has been Tom and Tracy Hazard on Feed Your Brand.
Awesome.
All right, all you out on social media, we're stopping the live. We're going to have Q&A and discussion with our members who are here live with us, and you can be too. You can sign up at podcastersunited.org if you want to.